Lovely viewers, welcome to Cooking with Abba. My name is Abba, and you are super welcome. Yes, so we're going to be looking at tomatoes. Yes, tomatoes when they are in season, you can make most of it to save cost because when it goes out of season, Charlie, the price becomes something else. So today I'm going to show you how to realistically work with batch tomatoes. A lot of tomatoes. What do you do with it? We're going to make tomato juice. We're going to make tomato puree or paste or concentrate. Yes, how you want to call it. And then I'm also going to teach you how to preserve your tomato or how to store your tomatoes in the fridge and then in the freezer for use as well. Those are four main things. Yes, there are four main things I'm going to teach you. First and foremost, when you get your tomatoes, what you want to do is to wash them. First and foremost, you need to wash it with salt and water. Salt would help kill those extra germs and all those things and also help you in preserving it. The setup I did was to have the tomato in water, just normal water for the first wash, the salt water for the second wash, and then the chopping board with the basin and that just to help me cut and remove the seeds. Then I have the strainer with a bucket to help me get water or tomato juice from the seed part. And then I have that is saying or the cauldron, which I'm going to be using for the tomato concentrate. For the fridge preservation, I'm going to use the strainer to help take the excess water and then the napkin and pan to also help dry it out before everything goes in there. So technically, you have to start with washing your water, and you can just wash with the first wash, just normal water does, just plain water does for the first wash. Then the second wash is what you do with the salt water. And as you're doing the first wash, you're also removing, should I say, the head or the eye or the connector of the tomato. Yes, the crown part. You're using it to also remove it as well. Then once you're done with that one, you go to the salt wash where you use the salt water to wash. As you're doing the salt water wash, you're also separating your tomatoes. So you remove the ones which are very soft for you to cut and then use for your concentrate. And the ones which are very hard, you can put into your strainer, which you're going to dry up and put into our refrigerator. So this is where you also do your segregation or separation. You take the hard ones for your fridge, the ones which are a bit soft or have issues, you put those ones aside for the concentrate. And for the fridge, make sure that you're picking very good ones. Yes. And once you're done, the soft ones, I just cut into two. Then I deseed them. Then they go into my cauldron. Initially, I was cutting them into smaller chunks. Then I realized that it's not feasible because I was doing a full big basket of tomatoes. And you realize the tomatoes I showed at the initial stage. When I poured it into the normal bowls, I got about three of it. So if I was going to go in the cutting way, it wasn't going to work. So I ended up just deseeding them and then putting them straight up into the cauldron as I went on further. So as you juice out the seed part into your strainer, you're going to get what we call the tomato juice. Tomato juice is very healthy. Tomato juice is super nutri-packed. In Ghana, we don't really take much of it, even though it's a bit, how should I say, it's a little bit not too sweet because tomatoes are usually a bit tangy and acidic. So when it comes to tomatoes, that is it. But then the juice has a lot of benefits in there. Some of the benefits is that one, it keeps you very much hydrated, and two, the nutrients in there are good for your health and it's good for your digestive tract as well. And for people who have issue with gallstones, it's very good for it. You can even use it on your skin for skincare, and you can also use a lot of it during pregnancy. Intake of it during pregnancy is also good because it's also rich in very how do you call it, antioxidants, which are also very good for your system. So when it comes to tomato juice, don't play with it. Yes, in Ghana we don't really take much of it. Our focus always is on the fresh tomatoes for our stews and soups, and sometimes we'll use out on some of those as well. So yes, once I was done with the separation and then the juicing, this is what happened in there. Once I was done, like I said, I stopped cutting it into small chunks at a point and they all went in wholesome, and that was it. The big that is saying was for the ones that were going to be pureed. Then I had the strainer which had the fairly hard ones for refrigeration. The seeds, when I was done, I was able to get the seeds out, and then the tomato juice separate as well. So that is also there. Then on my napkin, so this is a basin. Sorry, this is a tray, a metal tray. I use this because of the shape so that it doesn't fall over. Yes, and I had in how do you call it? The cloth, the flour cloth or the flour sack, and then my napkin on top, just to help me with the water clothing as well. Then I poured the fairly hard tomatoes onto it for them to also air up. So when I was done, the seeds, I went to just plant it in front of our house. Yes. So I just poured a little water to just prep the soil. Then I just spread the seed. And for the tomato juice, because it was a big batch of tomatoes I was working on, once I was down juicing it, I placed it into the fridge. And this is what I realized. Yes, I realized the top part had most of the fiber and the water went down. So to help me store this, I also had the packs which I was going to store the tomato juice in. You can use any containers you want or bottles you want. So I realized, this is what I realized, that the top has the how do I say, the fiber part in there, and then the down becomes very plain, like some light green bisa. But it's tomato juice. You want to have the full blend inside. I just stopped separating it. I just mixed everything. Then I just poured it into my storage packages in there. Then I closed it. So when you take one in the morning, you can drink it. It's good to drink usually in the day or in the morning, in the evening, how you want to drink it, when you want to drink it. Just be mindful of the fact that this is not very sweet and it's a little bit tangy and acidic, and you can freeze it because tomato juice, you need to be careful of the handling, lest it gets fermented. So you need to make sure that you store it in the freezer. When you want to use it, you defrost it. When you defrost, what it may separate, like the red part may separate, like the way it was in the initial video where I mixed all the two together. So don't be so worried about that as well. And you can blend them into your fruit juices as well. So if you're having watermelon, which is very sweet, or pineapple, you can blend those into it as well. So for the refrigeration, what I do is to use my napkin to clean it. Then I put it into my compartment, which I've lined with tissue. Tissue makes sure that at least, even if a part of it gets burst or something, the water doesn't spread across and then affect the other tomatoes. So to always keep your tomatoes dried and fresh. And you put the eye of the tomato down. The eye of the tomato has to go down. Then you can pack and arrange it beautifully. The ones which are a little bit soft or faulty, you can also freeze them. The frozen ones come perfectly when you want to do your stews. You can also even grind them or blend them or use them for your pepper and all those ones. So frozen tomatoes, you can also work with it. The ones that I remove the seeds and I cut, I place them on fire for it to steam up. You don't add any water to this because there's enough water in the tomato by itself. So you just have to cover it in the initial stages when it is cooking to soften up. But once you realize that it's beginning to boil, then you need to what? Open up the lid a bit so that some of the moisture can be going out. If you cover it fully, it's going to sweat and the sweat is going to go back, which is going to delay your cooking time. So that will be on till it reduces drastically. So once it reduces drastically, I just transferred it because I realized the cauldron was beginning to get bent in there. So I poured a little oil into a silver saucepan, then aluminum type. Then I poured in the mixture into it, and then I let it to just continue reducing. Now the oil doesn't have to be so much. It's just a little to avoid it sticking because these aluminum ones, the base is not that strong. So if you use without the oil, it will stick in very quickly. Yes, but then the cauldron is always the best when you are doing this. And mind you, in as much as we want it to reduce, you don't want it to get overly thick. Else when you're blending, you're going to struggle with the blending. And so once the texture is not too runny and is fair enough, is thick enough, but not overly thick, we can let it cool down and then we can blend it to make the blending very, very easy. So for me, I was using the two blenders to go along with it. The high speed blender, which gives you very good results, and you can also take this to the mill to use as well. You can use your regular blender too as well. You just go with the flow and like you get good results. That is the thing. You don't need to add any water in here. You don't want any water in it. And because it's soft and it has its own moisture in, you're going to get very good results as well. So you're going to transfer it back into the saucepan and it goes back onto fire, and you don't have to add any more oil at this point, no. And like I said, let the lid be halfway so that the steam can go away, so that it doesn't become water and go back into it and then give you more cooking time. The only thing to note is that around this point you'd have to be stirring it so that it forms together beautifully and it doesn't stick to your pan. Yes, so this is going to help you, and this actually helps a lot because it comes to a time when most of our Ghanaian dishes or recipes are all tomato based, from your stews to your soups to all of them. And it gets to a point where tomatoes become very, very expensive. So when you have this stored up, whenever you want to do your gravy, you take one and you're good to go. You want to do your jollof, you take one, you're good to go. You want to do your stews, you take one, you're good to go. You want to do your soups, you take one and you're good to go. And you can do stew, soups, and all those things without even using tomato paste or tomato mix or tomato the store-made ones at all, because this one is always very good and very tasty. But mind you, garbage in, garbage out. You need to buy quality tomatoes for this to get very good result. If you buy tomatoes, you won't get that fine result. So once that is also done cooking, you just have to let it cool down. Usually I let it sit overnight so that it cools by itself. Then the next day I just tie them into polythene bags to help me easily have it separated. Yes, you can put them into Ziploc bags or containers if you want it, or mold if you want it. And I like to do it in different sizes so that if I'm doing soup and I need just a little one to put in, like my light soup, then that goes in. If I'm doing gravy, I know I can take one. If I'm doing jollof, I know the size to take. So it's also good to have it in different sizes. And you can make it as thick as you want, and that is it. So at the end of the day, because of the aluminum saucepan, you obviously get some getting stuck in, which is normal. Just make sure you don't end up scooping those in, because that part can be very, very bitter as well. And the beautiful thing about using your tomato concentrate for your stews, soups, and all those ones is you get good result. You save more time, actually. Whenever you want to cook afterward, you save more time. So invest money, invest time into doing this big batch, but then at the end of the day you end up saving time when you are cooking, because it's already reduced the cooking time and stress as well. Now the advantage of this also is that it helps you save space in your fridge, because if you leave your fresh tomatoes, if you buy bulk tomatoes and you keep it in the fridge or freezer, it is work. We used to keep them in the freezer, but I realized it was occupying so much space in the freezer, because the whole tomatoes, imagine that quantity. If you put all of them in your deep freezer, all the space is gone. But this, a simple rack in your freezer can store all of it at a go. So you reduce the quantity and the storage space you are required. You also preserve your tomatoes for longer. It saves you money. It saves you time in the future as well, when tomato is very scarce. And this is my beautiful homemade tomato paste concentrate, or puree as you'd like to call it. And I hope you do try this, especially when tomatoes are in season. Make this investment when tomatoes are in season, and you thank me when tomatoes are out of season. So I see the next food video. Do live life to the fullest. Be joyous, be merry. Lots of love for my team and I. Mwah.